Hello and welcome to Prompt Fundamentals, how to create prompts for high-value tasks and workflows. This is the proven process that I teach C-suite executives and partners every single day. My name is Jeffrey Davis. I'm a business strategist who's done product strategy for McKinsey. I've done digital transformation for IBM, and I did business transformation for Madrid Alphatame. And now I'm moving into AI adoption, where I've worked inside of big corporations doing massive Gen AI rollouts. I'm the founder of Ascend AI for Consultants and Strategists, and I built a database of over 300 plus prompts, agents, and workflows. And today, I'm happy to walk you through the prompt basics. So I'm going to walk you through the three basic levels of prompts and what that really means and how we use each of them on a day-to-day basis. Now, when it comes to the first way that kind of all of us are using either ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever you're kind of choosing or approved tool is it kind of just starts with you making a little request. So you'll see in the top right there, I've got a little request that I said, look, find me benchmarks for my clients, competitors of Spotify. And then what will happen is Copilot or ChatGPT will then run to then go find all that information and gather it across the internet and then bring you a summary. Now, the way that ChatGPT, Copilot, or any of these tools kind of work is it's giving you the highest probability guess based on all the information it's able to gather. So if you ask it a very basic request, like find me benchmarks for client competitors of Spotify, it'll grab the most generic information that it can potentially find that achieves the simple question that you have, and it'll have to fill in whatever other information you need. So it's going to figure out, okay, what does it actually need for benchmarks? What do you actually need in terms of who are the competitors for Spotify? It'll have to figure out all that information for itself in a short amount of time and then kind of bring you a gist of what it believes is going to be the correct answer. Now, most of the time it'll get pretty close, and I think from a blind eye, it looks like it'll be 100% correct. Because if you're not someone who's doing deep data research or benchmarking 24/7, you'll see something and say, okay, cool, that looks about right. Now, when you're doing things for markets that you don't know 100%, so let's say I might be showing from Dubai, which is the place I live in, a market I know very well. But if I'm saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and look into Egypt market, or I'm going to look into Tokyo, it's going to be much harder for me to validate those responses. And it'll be much harder for me to understand if ChatGPT or Copilot are giving me the correct information the farther I get away from my expertise. So even though we're using a basic question to get a simple response back, there's a lot of missing information that we're not able to pull from. So let me take you through what the next phase of that is once you upgrade yourself to kind of understanding the basic structure of a prompt. And we'll break this down into kind of four really easy components. And this is kind of once you start to see a little bit more prompting or you see what people are doing, you'll start to see a little bit more structure in how things work. So when we all kind of first started, maybe year one, year two, into kind of ChatGPT and Copilot, this was kind of the prompt structure that everybody was using. You know, you had what's the role, or what do you want the AI to imagine it's going to be? Are you a senior market researcher? Are you a movie buff? Are you an executive assistant? Are you the CEO of X? Are you a consultant? And that's kind of sets the context for, if you think about AI as almost like it's looking for it through a bunch of different folders. So the more names of folders you mention, the easier it is for it to find which folder it needs to pull from. So if it has a folder of senior market research information, it can then say, cool, that's the folder I can pull in for context to find the correct information. Where if I just say, find me benchmarks, it kind of has to search generally across generic folders instead of more specific ones. Now, in the second part of that, I have the context, which is, look, you know how to do advanced research, right? And you understand current market information. So it can now say, cool, research capabilities, not basic, but advanced. And I need to understand current market, which I probably could have put a date. So over the last 2 years, 3 years would have been even more specific. Then I got, what are the actions that you are able to do? So what other folders or things that it needs to look through is, you know how to do competitor intelligence. You know how to analyze strategic positioning. You know how to deliver a comprehensive insights, and you can inform business strategy and decision making. Now it's starting to be able to understand a lot more in terms of what I actually need in terms of this market research. Then the last thing I can put is the output. So I want you to combine quantitative and qualitative insights to provide a complete market understanding in a report. Now, if you think about AI as if I was a junior, or even if I was a senior talking to a partner, but I would say think of it as almost like an intern, a really smart intern. But if you ask me the question to find benchmarks for clients, but I have never been in the role or don't understand 100% what benchmarks you need, I don't have any of the client context, I'm going to do what I can, and I'll bring you back something that might look right, but maybe isn't 100% fact-checked. If you give me a lot more detail and a lot more instructions, then I'll be able to find something way closer to what you actually need and what's going to be appropriate for what you are going to say is this is high quality, and now I can use this to either present to a client or I can take to my partner or whoever that's going to be, right? Now, once we moved into kind of last year, there was a big push for, and I would probably say 2023, 2024, there was a big push into prompts now starting to think. And if you've been using ChatGPT for the last 3 years, you might have realized that it used to just spit you out a direct answer, and then you got a direct response. But now almost all the models say we're thinking. Now, what that really means is that it's going through now a sequential set of steps, or it's trying to figure some things out. So it's breaking down that prompt or that thing that you've mentioned as just one little line, and it's turning it into its own kind of prompt sequence that it can figure out. Now, what that really means is it's saying, cool, this guy's asked me for benchmarks. What's the goal that he's trying to do? How do I need to return, or what's the output that I need to deliver? What are the things I should not be able to look into or I don't want to do? And then what's the context that I need to understand from this person? And one other thing that people are starting to see a lot of is it might ask you a couple questions off the back of that. So you might say, find me benchmarks, but instead of just going off and finding you benchmarks, it'll ask you some follow-up questions. Who is this for? Why do I need it? What format do you need it? Do you need it in PowerPoint? Do you need it in a Word document? Is there anything you don't want me to do? Is there any other context that you can provide in terms of the client, the questions? That's why it's kind of asking those information, is so it can have a more well-rounded set of instructions or prompts so that it can execute to a higher level and a higher quality. Now, I'm going to take you one step further, and we're going to talk about how I build my prompts. So those are kind of the three basic levels, right, that we talked about here in terms of just doing a basic question, having a basic structure for the role, context, objective, and output, and then really starting to think about the format for if you need to put a system together that you're going to do something repeatedly for the goal, the return format, warnings, context up, etc. So here's how I build my prompts, which are a little bit more detailed. And you can see on the right-hand side, this is one very long prompt. Now, we're going to break down each one of those steps of that prompt, and I'll let you know why each one is important. So when I build prompts, for example, for high-value tasks, the most important thing we need to think about is this is something that is important, right? It's not that I'm just saying, hey, summarize this email, or hey, can you just give me the transcript to this document? I need this to do something that is going to be important to my day-to-day or the clients that I'm working with. So when I'm working through something and it's a thought process that I'm working through, one of the major things I have to think about is what are the required inputs in order for me to get the output that I'm looking for, right? Because garbage in, garbage out, we all kind of hear that quite a lot. So let's say I have to do a strategy proposal for a client. The required inputs that I would need if I was to brief even a junior or someone else on my team, they'd have to be like, look, what type of strategy are we delivering? What's the industry, the business context that we're dealing with? Who's the client? How long does the proposal need to be? Is it a short 5-pager? Do you need 75 pages because we need to show technical depth? And then what's the time horizon in terms of when this needs to be completed, or when does the project need to be completed by, so we can understand? And what evidence is currently available? What case studies do we have that are relevant? What data and metrics do we have to prove our claim? What is the RFP asking for versus what can we respond, right? Now, these things you could either put in as an attachment, right, when you put this prompt in, but these are the required inputs that we always put in. So even if someone is first timer trying to use a prompt, they'll get a question that will say, hey, can you please provide these required inputs? And then from there, the prompt will then move forward and the AI will execute, creating a draft proposal or whatever that might be. The second thing that we look into is the objective, which is What do I actually want the prompt to do? And when we think about this, this is very similar to what we normally have is just the kind of basic version of that prompt, right? Which is what's the objective or the description that we have. And you can see in there that I've got a role. So you're a strategy execution specialist and a presentation architect, trained in McKinsey, BCG, and Bain methodologies. So now it's got 3 folders that I can pull from in terms of McKinsey information, BCG information, and Bain information. So when it's searching the internet, it'll find the latest and most relevant information from those places, blog information, whatever's publicly available. Then I'm very clear on what their job is, which is to research, synthesize, and produce a finished strategy proposal deck, right? And I think one of the things that happens sometimes when we're thinking about processes or workflows is it might say, oh, look, here's how you do this. So I always make sure to say very explicitly, your job's not to explain or describe it. You need to deliver the actual completed PowerPoint with content in the right format, organized slide by slide with everything that I might need from key points, supporting evidence, etc. So now I get a full idea of everything that I really need this to deliver. And this is just a start. Then when I move one level deeper, we're going to move into the instructions. So again, let's imagine the AI is that intern or my junior that I'm asking to do a presentation. If I just say, hey, go do a presentation, and they've never done a presentation before, or they don't know my standards, or they don't know how I think about things, they may go and they bring me something that might be at 10%. And then I'm going to be very angry, very upset. I'm like, how dare you bring me this? This is nowhere near the quality that we're looking for. But maybe I didn't give them any examples, and maybe I didn't give them any instructions. So the instructions that we give the LLM have to be specific and well formatted for them to better understand. Now, sometimes we just put in some quick steps, define a strategy for foundation, conduct some assessment, define a strategic opportunity, develop some strategy options, and present some recommendations, right? So some basics, 5 steps to kind of get us in a certain place, right? Now, each one of those steps, same as if I was to say to an intern, one of the things that we have now is the ability for an AI to stop and think. That means when you say define a strategy foundation, what does that actually mean? That means think about what is the strategic position, problem, goal, and business context that we're dealing with. Understand the challenge, desired outcome, and the strategic scope from the inputs I deliver to you. And then define strategic hypothesis that's essentially going to guide the belief of the brief of the proposal. Right now, we've got everything in a good, organized manner to say, cool, we're on the same page. Then I want you to understand the current state. So maybe I've given you some customer journeys. Maybe I've delivered you some interviews from clients that are also been part of that attachment. I need you to go through and understand all that. And one of the things that makes a big difference when you're really dealing with LLMs is thinking about what are the frameworks that already exist in the world that you can ask this AI to pull in. SWOT analysis, PESTLES for understanding the political and economic environment, Porter's 5 forces, understanding the value chain. All these things have lots of documented information already on the internet, which makes it very easy for you or me or anyone else to say, hey, please go look at that information, understand what that is, understand that context, and then bring that back so that we can have that as part of the way that you're formatting my results, right? Then we can go say, look, define that strategic opportunity, which is what are the opportunities emerging from the analysis so far? Then it's like, I don't need 50. Give me 3 to 5, something that's easy for me to understand, for me to read, and then for me to be able to move forward, right? And from there, you can see that each of the outputs from each of these, I'm saying these are going to be parts of the presentation. So that defining strategic foundation is actually just the executive summary. The current state analysis are 3 to 5 slides right just after to let you know where we're at. Then identifying the opportunity in 2 to 4 slides, and then developing those strategic options, right, 3 to 6 slides. And that'll depend on exactly how many I'm saying I need, but all that's now starting to come together. But the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is that you have a thought process. You have a way of doing things. If you sit and if you talk to Copilot or ChatGPT and say, hey, here's the way I think about things and here's how I do this, etc., might take you 2 minutes, right, to talk into it and just kind of blabber. Maybe it takes you 5. But once you have that process down, or even that thought process just documented in a transcript format, you can get ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, any of them to turn them into a step-by-step process that you can build your prompts for, that you can then repeat on a day-to-day basis. So I do this all the time. Now, the other thing that we need to think about when we're thinking about our prompts is, what are the expectations that we have for our intern? Just because this thing is supposed to be the smartest thing in the world and it's supposed to have all the world's information doesn't mean it knows what's inside your head. Same as when you're talking to a person. What is your quality criteria? What is your definition of good enough, right? And how do you define that? Then, in terms of the constraints and assumptions, what are the things that it currently has in terms of, you need to always think about it this way. Make sure you never have instructional language. Make sure you have a headline and a subheadline and 3 to 5 key points for each slide. Make sure there's a clear visual placeholder. What are the rules that you expect from people, but you may not always say out loud, right? And I think that's the most important thing that you want to have. And if there's any assumptions that you want to get off the table in terms of, look, this is the audience that we're doing for, the proposal must be presentation ready, we're going to have company specific visuals in terms of branding, whatever that might be, make sure you include that. And you don't always have to have it as well structured as something like this, but making sure that you write it down and it's there very clear is going to give enough information for the AI to then be able to understand and restructure it for you to get you the thing you're looking for. Now, the other thing, and this is a light example, but what is the output structure that you're looking for? And for a strategy deck, I might be, look, I need the title slide. I need each of the slides to have a headline, subheadline, key points, etc., visual placeholder. And then I want to repeat. I need an appendix. I need some data sources. I probably would have credentials in here as well. So I can have all that information, have it be organized well and settled. Now, the question might be is, okay, how do I get this structure? How do I get in a place where an AI is going to be able to use it? One of the things that's super easy for you to be able to do is, anytime you're using Copilot or ChatGPT, if you have a deliverable that is already there, just go ahead and upload it to Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, and just say, hey, please turn this into an output structure that an AI can recreate. Simple as that. And what it'll do, it'll essentially read through the document, and then it'll turn it into an outline. An outline is all you need, because then it'll assume based on the inputs, everything like that, what you need. You just need the basics. And from that, you can then refine that and edit it based on what you know and your expertise. But just getting a basic set of outlines that you can then tweak and change is already going to be a massive help. So always think about, what are the output structures that you're going to be able to do, and how do you want that to actually look and feel? The last thing that I'll talk about in terms of the prompt, and again, when we're presenting to our intern that we're going to help him with, is what's the definition of done? And in AI terms, what are the stop conditions? When do you need me to know that this is enough? One of the problems that you might encounter when you're doing some of this stuff, and this might have happened to you, where you kind of put in a task and ChatGPT or Copilot will just say, cool, I'm going. And it'll be like, I'll get back to you in a few hours, or I'll get back to you in a couple of minutes. But the AI is either never started that task, or it doesn't know when it should stop. So it just keeps going in terms of doing infinite research, doing infinite amounts of things, instead of really pausing and being like, cool, did I check that I completed all the things that I needed in order for me to then have this delivered? And those stop conditions, or your definition of done, are exceptionally important, because that's, again, part of the quality criteria that you're expecting either Claude, Gemini, Copilot, etc., to deliver for you. So make sure you have those. Now, let's dive a little deeper into the 3 types of prompts that I use. So this is a kind of complex version of kind of understanding the breakdown for all those things. But if we simplify it into what's the use cases, how do we actually use these? Let's simplify that down. So one way that I use prompts is as a printer, right? So it's a single task. I need a market research report. I'm going to give you information, and you are going to print me the result. No matter how much context, information, however short or long my prompt is, that's the simplicity of it. I need you to do one very specific thing. I need it to look exactly like this. This is the output I need. Please deliver it to me. These prompts are perfect for placing in prompt databases, being able to be shared with the rest of your team. Also, they make really great simple co-pilot agents where you could say, hey, I may always need to analyze transcripts from client interviews and turn them into briefs. So every transcript from a client, you just put it into your co-pilot agent and then it'll spit you out a client brief every single time. Or you say, I might need to turn this into a project timeline, or I need this proposal response draft based on what they said that I can then brief the rest of the team on. This is the basics, easiest, 100%. You should always think about it is what are the things that I'm printing every single day? Am I printing client briefs? Am I printing research reports? Am I printing even like speeches that you might have to be doing? You know, if you're speaking on stage, what are the things that you're just doing every single day and you already have a template or a format for it that someone either is or is not using that you probably could easily standardize for your entire either company, organization, department, team, or even just for yourself, right? That's for printer task, right? And those same things can be split into what's the role, what's the context, what's the action, and then what is my actual output that I need, right? The second thing is as a sparring partner. And I think this is really important and kind of, this is probably how most people in high level positions, whether executives, strategists, partners, are using Copilot, Gemini, Claude. They're using it to be a sparring partner, which means they know that they're the experts and you are the expert. Look, all the information you have, AI is not going to be able to replicate, repeat, or anything like that. The way that you're going to be able to use it is saying, look, I know how to get from A to Z or A to B, and you don't have to worry about trying to skip steps or anything like that. I just want you to work alongside me as a partner and help me with things along the way because I know how to either finish that strategy deck. I know how to make sure that I'm going to get this executive presentation to the board. I know how to do those numbers. I know how to do all these formulas, but there are a couple things that I just need help with along the way. And I want those to be done faster. So when you're setting up your sparring partner, you can say, look, I want you to work with me. You're a collaborative partner. Here are the things that I need your support on. So here are the 4, 5, 6 things from exactly, I want you to execute research. I want you to provide critical context. I want you to be able to understand and challenge my assumptions. I want you to deliver strategic insights, all while I'm doing things and I'm updating you along the way while I'm doing my presentation or while I'm doing my report or whatever it is I might be doing. But then you want to outline, okay, what is it that you don't need help with? Because sometimes, let's say, same as if you're working with someone on a team, right? You might be like, look, here are the things I actually need you for, and here are the things that I'm great at, so I don't need your help with. Understand and tell, like, I don't need you to just go and run away and try to finish the deck for me. You don't know better than I do, so don't even try, right? I don't need you to try to apply these different frameworks without me telling you to. I don't need you to try to interrupt me when I'm in the flow of thinking through things. Those are the things that you can kind of detail. And you can see in the green there where we have the kind of your work as an extension, the task or the kind of end goal, the output isn't, deliver me a thing. The output is that you need to be an extension of me and you need to be working with me consistently in order for me to get the right results that I'm looking for. Yeah. Now, the last part on this is you can use it to be something autonomous, which is like the classic, I need an AI assistant to go do something for me. Go run, complete a task, come back with the answer. That's all I really care about, right? Now, the best way to kind of use this is if there's something that you don't care how long it really takes because you might be working on something else and you just need the information or you just need the thing to get done. Same as if you were to say, hey, you have an EA or an executive assistant and you're saying, hey, look, go do something, bring me back the result. I'll figure it out later when it's more important to me. That's what I think about for when I'm saying autonomous. So I want to go book a movie ticket. I want to go look at some stocks. I want to go figure out some housing prices because I'm looking to buy a house. Go do that thing and bring me back the stuff that I need. Now, the most important thing here is to think about what is your criteria. So if you are looking for property to invest in, if you're looking for stocks to invest in, if you're looking for a movie to do, what's the normal criteria you have? Do you actually, or even if you're thinking about, look, we need to move into a new territory, right, for our business. you're thinking, okay, what's the criteria that we normally have for new land locations that we look for before we open up a store, right? Do they need to be on the corner? Do they need to be on a certain level of busyness? What's the level of traffic we're looking for? How many people need to live in that city? Go put all that criteria down. Then set it up to say, hey, look, here's our thought process in terms of how we eliminate places based on criteria. Here's how we categorize it. And I'm sure there's some Excel sheet that you guys already have that does that. And then just say, go. No, now go handle that. And then it'll go run through and it'll go through the exact task and thought process. There's a tool called Manus, which I think is one of the best for this. Chinese-born tool, just as an FYI for those that it's important. And it'll go and do the tasks. It's one of the best at task management. So it'll go and set up its own kind of task list, go through the criteria that you've mentioned, and then it'll go hit each one of those things one by one, complete each one of the deliverables, and then you end up with everything in one, like 5 or 6 deliverables ready for you, plus the end result that you wanted to. The interesting thing about Manus is that it's actually built with its own computer inside. I think Claude has started to do this as well. ChatGPT is kind of somewhat doing this with some of the automation stuff, but what it allows you to essentially do is you can go into Manus directly, put it in, and it'll say, look, I'm going to go search the internet. It'll go read through all the things. It can go through in book. You can click, it'll click through everything for you. And then it'll say, hey, look, can you please either just provide me with your card details, or it'll say, hey, look, it's ready for you to go ahead and pay. All you do is put your stuff in, you move on, and then you're done, right? So that's where we really get to at the end of that, right? And I think that's the kind of big task that we're looking for at the very end, to really say, everything's kind of done for us. But right now I do those for things that aren't so important. I'm like, just deal with that. Come back to me later. And I'll deal with the high value stuff. Those are the 3 types that I use. Now what we're going to do is in the next video, I'm going to put down a whole breakdown in terms of how we actually use each one of those 3 prompts and side by side. So those will be a next little mini series that we'll put together to show you how to build and create each one of those individually. The next thing we're going to look into after that series is just building a prompt sequence. So how you go from just taking one prompt to creating multiple prompts that are able to give you a result. Because let's take, for example, a proposal. It's not really just one step and it's done. You have to do research. You have to gather insights. You have to look at all your credentials. You have to build a narrative, and then you have to build the slides. So if you really want the highest value results, you actually need to create a prompt for each one of those steps, or a couple prompts for each one of those steps, in order for you to get the best results possible and to speed up your workflow even better. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us for this one. I'm really looking forward to the next part of the series. We'll make sure to get the little mini series to break down how you do each one of those 3 prompts and how to turn them into Copilot agents. And then we'll walk you guys through how we're going to actually talk about doing a prompt sequence in the next video for here. Talk to you soon.